The Arizona Territory in April of 1847 was a land of harsh beauty and stark contrasts. The sun beat down on the red rocks and dusty plains, baking the earth and making every shadow a welcome relief. It was a place where fortunes could be made and lost in a heartbeat, and where the lines between right and wrong were often blurred by desperation and greed. Ezra McCullough, a man in his early 30s, stood out even in this rugged landscape. He wasn't a gunslinger or a prospector, though he knew his way around both. Ezra was a rancher, a quiet, thoughtful man who had come to Arizona seeking a fresh start after losing his family to illness back east. He'd built a modest spread, scratching a living from the unforgiving land. His ranch was small, but it was his, and he treated his livestock and hands with fairness and respect, a rarity in those parts. Ezra believed in hard work and honesty, values instilled in him by his parents. He wasn't quick to judge, but he had a strong sense of justice. He saw the potential for good in everyone, even those who seemed lost to the darkness. He rode into the small settlement of Redemption one sweltering afternoon, needing supplies. Redemption wasn't much to look at, a dusty main street lined with a saloon, a general store, and a blacksmith. But it was the closest thing to a town for miles, and Ezra needed flour, sugar, and some new rope. As he tied his horse to the hitching post outside the general store, he noticed a commotion near the center of town. A small crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of curiosity and something Ezra recognized as a darker kind of excitement. He moved closer, drawn by the murmur of voices and the unsettling feeling in his gut. He soon discovered the source of the crowd's attention. What Ezra saw made his blood run cold. A young woman, barely more than a girl, stood on a makeshift wooden platform. Her dark hair was matted and tangled, her clothes torn and dirty. She was Apache. He could tell by her features and the remnants of traditional clothing she wore. But it wasn't her appearance that shocked Ezra. It was the way she was being treated. A burly man with a booming voice, dressed in a dusty suit and a wide-brimmed hat, was acting as the auctioneer. He gestured towards the girl with a sweep of his hand, his words dripping with disdain. "Here she is, gentlemen, a genuine Apache maiden, ripe for the taking, strong back, good for chores. What my bid?" The crowd, a motley assortment of cowboys, miners, and drifters, chuckled and jeered. Some made crude remarks, their eyes filled with a cruel hunger. Ezra felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He couldn't believe what he was witnessing. In what world was it acceptable to treat another human being like this, like an animal to be bought and sold? Bids started low, a few coins here and there. The auctioneer egged them on, trying to drum up more interest. Ezra watched, his fists clenched, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to intervene, to stop this barbaric spectacle, but he wasn't sure what he could do. He was just one man against a crowd of callous individuals. The girl on the platform stood silently, her eyes downcast, her expression unreadable. Ezra couldn't imagine what she must be feeling. The fear, the humiliation, the utter despair. He saw a flicker of defiance in her eyes, a spark that refused to be extinguished. As the bidding stalled at a meager $2, the auctioneer sighed in frustration. $2? Is that all she's worth? Come on, gentlemen, surely someone can offer more than that. Without thinking, before he could even fully process what he was doing, Ezra heard himself speak. His voice, though calm, cut through the noise of the crowd. "I bid $2. The auctioneer looked at him, surprised. $2? You already bid that, mister." Ezra took a deep breath. $2.01. The crowd went silent. They stared at Ezra, their faces a mixture of confusion and amusement. He wasn't the type to participate in such things. Why would he want an Apache woman? The auctioneer, recovering from his surprise, grinned, a glint of greed in his eyes. Going once, to the gentleman with the generous offer. Going twice, going 3 times. "Sold. To Mr. McCullough," Ezra supplied, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. The auctioneer scribbled something on a piece of paper. "All right, McCullough, $2.01. Come collect your property." He spat the last word out as if it tasted foul. Ezra walked towards the platform, the crowd parting to let him through. He could feel their eyes on him, some curious, some hostile. He ignored them, focusing on the young woman. She hadn't moved, her gaze still fixed on the ground. As he approached, he could see the subtle trembling of her hands. He reached out, offering her his hand. "Come on," he said softly. "It's over." She looked up at him then, her eyes dark and wary. They were the eyes of a cornered animal, full of fear and suspicion. She didn't take his hand. Instead, she took a step back, her body tensing. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ezra said, his voice gentle. "My name is Ezra. I bought you so I could set you free." She stared at him, her expression unchanging. He couldn't tell if she believed him or not. He didn't expect her to. Why would she? She had probably only known cruelty and betrayal her entire life. "What's your name?" he asked. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Ayanna. Ayanna," Ezra repeated, testing the sound of it on his tongue. "It's a beautiful name." He kept his hand outstretched, offering her a way out. Ayanna hesitated, her eyes flicking between Ezra's face and his hand. She looked at the crowd, then back at Ezra. Finally, with a hesitant movement, she reached out and took his hand. Her hand was small and calloused, but her grip was surprisingly strong. Ezra smiled reassuringly. "Let's get out of here." He led her away from the platform, away from the jeering crowd, towards his horse. As they walked, he could feel Ayanna's eyes on him, still questioning, still uncertain. He knew he had a long way to go to earn her trust. He just hoped he could. He helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her, holding the reins loosely. He turned his horse and rode slowly out of Redemption, leaving the stunned crowd behind. Their journey had just begun. The ride back to Ezra's ranch was silent. Ayanna sat stiffly behind him, her body tense, her eyes scanning the horizon. Ezra could feel her apprehension, her unspoken questions. He knew she was wondering where he was taking her, what he planned to do with her. He couldn't blame her for being wary. After a few hours, as the sun began to dip below the mountains, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Ezra stopped by a small stream. He dismounted and helped Ayanna down. "We'll rest here for a bit," he said. "There's water, and I have some food." He unpacked some dried meat and bread from his saddlebags and offered it to Ayanna. She looked at the food, then at Ezra, her eyes narrowed. She took a small piece of the meat and sniffed it cautiously before taking a tentative bite. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Ezra looked at her, confused. "Why what? Why you buy me?" she said, her English broken but understandable. "You want slave?" Ezra shook his head. "No, Ayanna, I don't want a slave. I told you, I want to set you free." "Free," she repeated, the words sounding foreign on her tongue. "White man, no free Apache." "I'm not like the other white men," Ezra said, his voice firm. "I don't believe in owning people. What happened back there was wrong. I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Ayanna studied him intently, her dark eyes searching his face for any sign of deceit. "You lie," she said finally. "All white men lie." Ezra sighed. He knew he couldn't convince her with words alone. He would have to earn her trust through his actions. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm telling you the truth now. I'm taking you to my ranch. You can rest there, get some food, and clean clothes. And then, if you want, I'll help you find your way back to your people." Ayanna remained silent, her expression skeptical. She didn't believe him, not entirely, but she also had nowhere else to go. For now, she would play along, watch him carefully, and wait for her opportunity. She knew better than to trust a white man's promises. But maybe, just maybe, this one was different. Maybe this Ezra McCullough was telling the truth. Only time would tell. She ate the rest of the dried meat in silence, her eyes never leaving Ezra's. The seed of doubt, and perhaps a sliver of hope, had been planted. The next few days were a slow dance of tentative trust and guarded silence. As they traveled, Ezra tried to engage Ayanna in conversation, asking her about her life, her family, her people. At first, she was reluctant to share anything, answering his questions with short, monosyllabic replies. But Ezra persisted, showing her kindness and respect, never pushing her too hard. He told her about his life back east, about his wife and children who had succumbed to a terrible fever. He spoke of his grief, his loneliness, and his decision to leave everything behind and start anew in Arizona. He shared his hopes and dreams for his ranch, his desire to build a peaceful life for himself. Slowly, Ayanna began to open up. She told him about her family, her village, and the raid that had torn her away from everything she knew and loved. She spoke of the terror and violence she had witnessed, the loss and pain she had endured. Her voice was soft, but her words were filled with a raw emotion that resonated deeply with Ezra. He learned that her village had been attacked by a group of ruthless bandits who were after their land and resources. Many of her people had been killed, and the survivors, including Ayanna, had been taken captive. She had been separated from her family and sold into slavery, eventually ending up at the auction in redemption. As they shared their stories, a bond began to form between them. They were two people from different worlds, brought together by circumstance and united by their shared experiences of loss and hardship. Ezra saw the strength and resilience in Ayanna's eyes, the spirit that had refused to be broken despite everything she had been through. Ayanna, in turn, saw the kindness and compassion in Ezra's heart, the genuine desire to help her, not to exploit her. One evening, as they sat around a small campfire, Ayanna pointed to a constellation in the night sky. "That is the spirit of the warrior," she said. "He watches over our people, protects us from harm." Ezra looked up at the stars, trying to decipher the constellation. "It's beautiful," he said. "We have different names for the stars, but we all see the same sky." Ayanna nodded slowly. "We are different," she said, "but maybe not so different." The journey to Ezra's ranch was more than just a physical one. It was a journey of understanding, a journey of healing, a journey that was slowly but surely bridging the gap between two different worlds. Each shared story, each moment of connection, was laying the foundation for something new, something unexpected, something that neither of them could have foreseen. When they finally arrived at Ezra's ranch, Ayanna was surprised. It wasn't the grand estate she had imagined, but a modest collection of buildings nestled in a small valley. A simple wooden house, a barn, a corral, and a few outbuildings comprised the ranch. It was small, but it was well kept and had a sense of order and purpose. Ezra introduced Ayanna to his two ranch hands, Miguel and Thomas, both hard-working men who treated her with respect, taking their cue from Ezra. He showed her to a small room in the house, offering her clean clothes and a chance to rest. He assured her that she was welcome to stay as long as she needed, and that he would help her return to her people whenever she was ready. In the days that followed, Ayanna began to explore the ranch, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. She observed Ezra and his men as they worked, tending to the cattle, repairing fences, and planting crops. She watched, listened, and learned. It soon became apparent that Ayanna was far more resourceful than Ezra had initially realized. She possessed a deep knowledge of the land, understanding the rhythms of nature and the secrets of survival. She could identify edible plants and medicinal herbs, track animals, and predict the weather with uncanny accuracy. One day, a calf wandered off from the herd, and the ranch hand spent hours searching for it without success. Ayanna, who had been quietly observing the search, offered her assistance. She studied the ground, examining the tracks and broken branches, and within a short time, she led them directly to the missing calf, which had become trapped in a thicket. Ezra was impressed. "You have a gift, Ayanna," he said. "You know this land better than I do." Ayanna shrugged modestly. "It is my home," she said. "I know its secrets." As Ayanna spent more time on the ranch, she began to contribute in her own way. She helped with the cooking, preparing meals that were both nutritious and delicious. She tended to the garden, using her knowledge of plants to cultivate a bountiful harvest. She even helped with the livestock, using her gentle touch and understanding of animal behavior to calm skittish horses and soothe sick calves. Her skills and her willingness to work hard quickly earned her the respect of Ezra and his men. They saw her not as a captive or a burden, but as a valuable partner, a skilled and resourceful woman who was making a real contribution to the ranch. With each passing day, Ayanna's trust in Ezra grew. She saw his genuine kindness, his unwavering honesty, and his deep respect for her and her culture. She realized that he was not like the other white men she had encountered, the men who had brought so much pain and suffering to her people. Ezra McCullough was different. He was a man of his word, a man of integrity, a man who saw her not as a savage, but as a human being. And as Ayanna's trust in Ezra grew, so did her feelings for him. She found herself drawn to his quiet strength, his gentle nature, and his unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. She began to see him not just as her protector, but as something more, something deeper. She was falling in love. Ezra, too, found himself increasingly drawn to Ayanna. He admired her strength, her resilience, and her deep connection to the land. He was captivated by her dark eyes, her gentle smile, and the quiet wisdom she possessed. He found himself longing for her company, seeking out opportunities to talk to her, to learn from her. He knew that falling in love with an Apache woman was unconventional, even scandalous, in the Arizona Territory of 1847. He knew that it would likely bring him scorn and prejudice from some members of the community. But he couldn't deny his feelings. He had spent so long living in the shadow of grief and loss, and Ayanna had brought light back into his life. One warm evening, as they sat on the porch of the house, watching the sunset, Ezra turned to Ayanna. "Ayanna," he said, his voice soft, I care for you deeply." Ayanna looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and tenderness. "I care for you too, Ezra," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Ezra reached out and took her hand, his fingers gently interlacing with hers. "I know we come from different worlds," he said, "but I believe we can build a life together, a life filled with love and respect." Ayanna squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with tears. "It will not be easy," she said. "Many will not understand." "I know," Ezra said, "but we can face it together. We can show them that love knows no boundaries, no color, no tribe." They talked late into the night, sharing their hopes and dreams for the future. They discussed the challenges they would face, the cultural differences they would have to overcome. Ezra learned more about Apache traditions and beliefs, and Ayanna learned more about American customs and values. They realized that their love was a bridge between two cultures, a bridge that could bring understanding and acceptance. They were determined to build that bridge, to create a life where their two worlds could coexist in harmony. There are moments of doubt, moments of fear, moments when the weight of societal expectations threatened to overwhelm them. But their love for each other was stronger than any obstacle. They learned to communicate openly and honestly, to respect each other's differences, and to celebrate their shared values. Ezra began to incorporate Apache traditions into his life, learning the language, respecting the customs, and honoring the spirits of the land. Ayanna, in turn, embraced American ways, learning to read and write, adapting to ranch life, and appreciating the opportunities that were available to her. Their love was a testament to the power of the human heart, the ability to overcome prejudice and misunderstanding, and the capacity to find common ground even in the most unlikely of circumstances. Their connection deepened with each passing day, solidifying their commitment to building a life together, a life that would be a beacon of hope and a symbol of unity in a divided world. Their decision to marry was met with mixed reactions. Some of the townsfolk in Redemption, and even a few of Ezra's acquaintances, voiced their disapproval, whispering behind their backs and making snide remarks. But Ezra and Ayanna refused to let the negativity deter them. They knew that their love was strong, and that was all that mattered. They decided to have two ceremonies, one following American traditions and the other honoring Apache customs. The American ceremony was a simple affair, held in the small church in Redemption. Only a few close friends and neighbors attended, but the love and support they offered was genuine. Ayanna wore a simple white dress, sewn by her own hands, and Ezra wore his best suit. The Apache ceremony was held a few days later, on a hilltop overlooking the ranch. It was a more intimate gathering, attended by a few members of Ayana's tribe who had heard about her whereabouts and had come to witness her union with Ezra. Ayana wore traditional Apache clothing, adorned with intricate beadwork and feathers. Ezra wore a simple buckskin shirt, a sign of respect for Apache traditions. The Apache ceremony was a beautiful and spiritual experience, filled with ancient rituals and songs. The tribal elder blessed the couple, praying for their health, happiness, and prosperity. Ezra and Ayana exchanged vows, promising to honor and cherish each other for all of their days. After the ceremonies, Ezra and Ayana began to build their life together in earnest. They worked side by side on the ranch, sharing the responsibilities and supporting each other through thick and thin. They blended their cultures in every aspect of their lives, creating a unique and harmonious home. They decorated their house with a mix of American and Apache artifacts, creating a space that reflected both of their heritages. They cooked meals that combined American and Apache ingredients, creating dishes that were both delicious and nutritious. They celebrated both American and Apache holidays, honoring the traditions of both of their cultures. They also made a conscious effort to learn from each other, to understand each other's perspectives, and to bridge the gap between their two worlds. Ezra learned to speak Apache fluently, and Ayana became proficient in English. They shared stories and songs from their respective cultures, enriching each other's lives and expanding their horizons. Their marriage was a symbol of hope and unity, a testament to the power of love to overcome prejudice and misunderstanding. They were determined to create a life where their children could embrace both of their heritages, where they could be proud of their Apache roots and their American identity. Their commitment to each other and to their shared future was unwavering, a beacon of light in a world that was often filled with darkness. As the years passed, Ezra and Ayana's ranch flourished. They worked tirelessly, side by side, their combined skills and knowledge creating a thriving enterprise. Ezra's experience with ranching, combined with Ayana's deep understanding of the land and its resources, proved to be a winning combination. They expanded their cattle herd, improved their crops, and built new structures on the ranch. They implemented sustainable farming practices, respecting the land and ensuring its long-term health. They also diversified their operations, adding a small trading post to serve the needs of the local community. Their success was not just due to their hard work and ingenuity, but also to their strong sense of community. They treated their ranch hands fairly, paying them good wages and providing them with comfortable living conditions. They also reached out to their neighbors, offering assistance and support whenever needed. Ezra and Ayana's greatest joy, however, came from their growing family. They were blessed with 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, each of whom inherited the best qualities of both of their parents. The children grew up speaking both Apache and English, learning about both Apache and American traditions, and embracing both of their heritages. Ezra and Ayana made sure that their children understood the importance of respect, tolerance, and understanding. They taught them to appreciate diversity, to value different perspectives, and to treat everyone with kindness and compassion. They instilled in them a strong sense of justice, a deep love for the land, and an unwavering commitment to building a better world. Their children thrived in the nurturing environment that Ezra and Ayana created. They excelled in their studies, developed strong friendships, and became active members of the community. They were living proof that love could conquer all, that prejudice could be overcome, and that 2 different cultures could coexist in harmony. The ranch became a haven, a place where people from all walks of life were welcomed and treated with respect. Travelers passing through the area often stopped at the ranch, seeking food, shelter, and companionship. Ezra and Ayana never turned anyone away, offering them whatever assistance they needed. The McCullough Ranch became known throughout the Arizona Territory as a place of peace, prosperity, and understanding, a testament to the power of love and the resilience of the human spirit. Ezra and Ayanna had built a life together that was far beyond anything they could have imagined, a life that was a beacon of hope and a symbol of unity in a divided world. The ranch was more than just a business. It was a home, a family, and a legacy. Life was not always easy for Ezra and Ayanna. As an interracial couple in the Arizona territory, they faced their share of prejudice and hardship. Some people refused to do business with them, others made hurtful comments, and still others treated them with outright hostility. There were times when Ayanna was denied service in stores, or when their children were taunted at school. There were moments when Ezra was ostracized by his peers, or when their ranch was threatened by unscrupulous individuals who sought to exploit their vulnerability. One particularly difficult period came during a time of heightened tensions between settlers and Native Americans. False rumors spread throughout the territory, accusing the Apache of raiding settlements and attacking innocent civilians. Fear and paranoia gripped the community, and suspicion fell upon Ayanna and her family. Some of their neighbors, who had once been friendly, now turned their backs on them. They accused Ayanna of being a spy for her tribe, and they threatened to drive her and her family off their land. Ezra stood firm, defending his wife and children against the baseless accusations. He reminded his neighbors of all the good that Ayanna had done for the community, of her kindness, her generosity, and her unwavering commitment to peace. But the prejudice persisted, fueled by ignorance and fear. One night, a group of masked men rode onto the McCullough ranch, vandalizing their property and setting fire to their barn. Ezra and Ayanna fought bravely to protect their home and their family, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The fire destroyed their barn and much of their livestock, leaving them devastated and heartbroken. But even in the face of such adversity, Ezra and Ayanna refused to give up hope. They knew that they had to stay strong, not just for themselves, but for their children and for the community that they had come to love. They rallied their friends and neighbors, who came to their aid, helping them to rebuild their barn and to recover from their losses. The incident served as a wake-up call for many in the community, who realized the injustice of their prejudice and the importance of standing up against hate and intolerance. Ezra and Ayanna's resilience in the face of hardship inspired others to challenge their own biases and to embrace diversity. Their story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that love and understanding could triumph over hate and fear, even in the most difficult of circumstances. They proved that true strength lies not in conforming to societal norms, but in staying true to one's values and in fighting for what is right, no matter the cost. Over time, Ezra and Ayanna's unwavering commitment to their values and their tireless efforts to build a better community began to pay off. Slowly but surely, they earned the respect and admiration of those around them. People began to see them not as an oddity or a threat, but as valuable members of the community, as individuals who were making a real difference in the world. Ezra's honesty and integrity in his business dealings earned him the trust of local merchants and ranchers. He became known as a man of his word, someone who could be counted on to deliver on his promises. Ayanna's knowledge of the land and her skills in healing and midwifery made her a valuable asset to the community. People sought her advice on everything from planting crops to treating illnesses. Their children, who were bright, well-mannered, and respectful, also played a role in changing people's perceptions. They excelled in school, participated in community events, and demonstrated a genuine desire to contribute to the well-being of others. They were living proof that children from different backgrounds could thrive when given the opportunity. As Ezra and Ayanna became more integrated into the community, they began to take on leadership roles. Ezra was elected to the town council, where he used his voice to advocate for fairness and equality. Ayanna became a mentor to young women, teaching them valuable life skills and empowering them to pursue their dreams. They also worked tirelessly to promote understanding and reconciliation between settlers and Native Americans. They organized community events that celebrated both cultures, sharing food, music, and stories. They encouraged dialogue and communication, fostering a sense of empathy and respect. Their efforts did not go unnoticed. People from all walks of life began to recognize the value of their work and the importance of their message. They were invited to speak at community gatherings, to share their story, and to inspire others to embrace diversity. The McCullough Ranch became a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a world that was often filled with darkness. People came from far and wide to visit the ranch, to learn from Ezra and Ayanna, and to experience the unique sense of community that they had created. Ezra and Ayanna had transformed from outsiders to respected figures in the community, earning the acceptance and admiration of those who had once doubted them. They had proven that love could conquer all, that prejudice could be overcome, and that two different cultures could coexist in harmony. Their legacy was one of peace, prosperity, and understanding, a testament to the power of the human spirit to create a better world. They demonstrated that true respect is earned through actions, not demanded by birthright, and that a community is strengthened by its diversity, not weakened by it. Ezra and Ayanna were deeply committed to raising their children with a strong sense of identity, rooted in both Apache and American traditions. They understood the challenges that their children would face growing up in a world that often tried to force people into neat, single identity boxes. They wanted their children to know and embrace both sides of their heritage, to be proud of who they were, and to have the confidence to navigate a complex and often prejudiced world. They taught their children the Apache language, sharing stories and songs from their ancestors. They taught them about the Apache connection to the land, about the importance of respecting nature, and about the spiritual traditions that had guided their people for centuries. They also taught them about American history, about the values of democracy and freedom, and about the opportunities that were available to them in this new land. They encouraged their children to explore both cultures, to participate in both Apache and American ceremonies, and to learn from people from all walks of life. They made sure that their children understood the importance of education, sending them to the best schools in the area and encouraging them to pursue their passions. Their eldest son, Kai, became a skilled rancher, following in his father's footsteps and learning the art of managing livestock and cultivating the land. He also became a respected member of the Apache community, participating in tribal ceremonies and advocating for the rights of his people. Their eldest daughter, Tala, became a teacher, dedicating her life to educating young children and inspiring them to reach their full potential. She used her knowledge of both Apache and American cultures to create a curriculum that was both engaging and relevant, helping her students to develop a deep understanding of the world around them. Their youngest son, Chaitan, became a doctor, using his skills and knowledge to heal the sick and to provide care to those in need. He worked in both the American and Apache communities, bridging the gap between two different worlds and earning the trust and respect of all those he served. Their youngest daughter, Lila, became an artist, using her talents to express her creativity and to share her unique perspective on the world. She drew inspiration from both Apache and American traditions, creating works of art that were both beautiful and thought-provoking. Ezra and Ayanna's children grew up to be successful, compassionate, and well-rounded individuals, living proof that it was possible to embrace a dual heritage and to thrive in a world that often tried to divide people. They carried on their parents' legacy of peace, prosperity, and understanding, making a positive impact on the world and inspiring others to embrace diversity and to celebrate the richness of human experience. They understood that their dual heritage was not a burden, but a gift, a source of strength and resilience that allowed them to navigate the world with grace. And years later, as Ezra and Ayanna sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching their grandchildren play in the fields, they often reflected on their journey. They had come a long way from that fateful day in redemption, when Ezra had impulsively bid $2.01 for a young Apache woman he barely knew. They had faced challenges and hardships that had tested their strength and their resolve. They had overcome prejudice and misunderstanding, building a life together that was a testament to the power of love and the resilience of the human spirit. They had created a legacy of peace, prosperity, and understanding that would endure for generations to come. Their children and grandchildren carried on their values, working to make the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. The McCullough Ranch remained a haven, a place where people from all walks of life were welcomed and treated with respect. Travelers still stopped by, seeking food, shelter, and companionship. And the story of Ezra and Ayanna was told and retold, inspiring others to embrace diversity and to celebrate the richness of human experience. Ezra and Ayanna knew that their journey had not been easy, but they were grateful for every moment, for every challenge, and for every opportunity to make a difference. They had found love in the most unlikely of places, building a life together that was far beyond anything they could have imagined. Their legacy extended far beyond their family and their ranch. They had inspired a community, a territory, and even a nation to embrace diversity and to strive for equality. They had shown the world that love could conquer all, that prejudice could be overcome, and that two different cultures could coexist in harmony. As they sat there, watching the sunset, they knew that their work was not yet done. There was still much to be done to heal the divisions that plagued the world, to promote understanding and reconciliation, and to build a future where all people could live together in peace and harmony. But they also knew that they had laid a solid foundation, that their children and grandchildren would continue their work, and that their legacy would endure, inspiring generations to come to strive for a better world. Their love story, born from an act of compassion and nurtured through years of shared experiences, became a legend in the Arizona Territory. It was a story of courage, resilience, and unwavering hope, a story that reminded everyone that even in the darkest of times, the light of love could always shine through. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Ezra and Ayanna held hands, their hearts filled with gratitude, knowing that their journey had been worthwhile and that their legacy of love and acceptance would live on forever.